Back to the daily grind. The channel's getting false flagged by triggered trolls, so make sure you subscribe to the new channel. Let's get to the MMA news. Finally, some pure MMA news. We don't gotta talk about fucking Paulie McDiggles for one video. Brock Lesnar's been called out by another MMA fighter, Matt Mitrione, and this gets really interesting because, I don't even know if Brock Lesnar knows who Matt Mitrione is, so that's not the interesting part, but this is still interesting. Walk with me. Matt Mitrione fights for Bellator. You know who else is potentially going to be fighting for Bellator soon? Frank Mir. You know who else fights for Bellator? Bobby Lashley. You might ask yourself, who's Bobby Lashley? Bobby Lashley is another person who used to be a professional wrestler who's been trying MMA out. He hasn't had many fights to my knowledge over at Bellator. They're saving him for the biggest fights. So we could get a potential Brock Lesnar versus Bobby Lashley, two former WWE fighters in a real fight in Bellator. And they don't have USADA involved, so they could probably get away with a little more slack than they would be able to in the UFC. We probably wouldn't have to worry about them getting suspended for a year and all of that stuff. And not to mention, Frank Mir and Brock Lesnar are currently 1-1. They've still got a score to settle. That would have been the main event of UFC 200, but Frank Mir lost to Mark Hunt. Therefore, if he and Mark Hunt went on to fight Brock Lesnar at UFC 200, but if Frank Mir would have beat Mark Hunt, or not only that, Frank Mir got suspended also. So I'm not 100% correct. I don't have it pulled up. I might not be 100% correct on he lost to Mark Hunt, but I do know he got suspended. He was unable to fight at UFC 200 versus Brock Lesnar. That would have been huge. The third fight between Frank Mir and Brock Lesnar, but that could happen now at Bellator because Frank Mir was released by the UFC, so now he's got the potential to be signed by Scott Coker at Bellator, which they've already been in talks. That's very likely possibility. So we could get Frank Mir versus and Matt Mitrione to a lot of people who don't really know who he is, the casual fans, if any casual fans are listening. Matt Mitrione used to fight in the UFC. He doesn't fight in the UFC anymore. He fights at Bellator. He just beat Fedor, which is a guy that's a lot of people respect as one of the top pound-for-pound fighters in the world. Some people have him at the #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the history of MMA. I disagree with that. I would rank John Jones probably higher overall. But that's an argument for another day. But Fedor's he's definitely top 5. He would definitely be on the MMA Mount Rushmore. So Matt Mitrione was just able to finish that guy in his last fight. So Matt Mitrione does have a little bit of stature over at Bellator, and for the right payday, I'm sure Brock Lesnar would fight anybody. So if Bellator is able to offer Brock Lesnar as much, if not more money than the UFC, which they are capable to offer a lot of money for the right people. Bellator is back. You know how the UFC was just bought by WME-IMG, so a company that bought them for like billions of dollars. Well, Bellator is backed by Viacom now, who's also got a lot of money. So they could pay Brock Lesnar. They could definitely get Brock Lesnar over to Bellator if they show him the money. Now, I don't think this will be a hurdle, actually. Do you think Brock Lesnar's under contract with the UFC? Do you think he signed on for more than one fight, or I think it was just a one-off fight? So, Brock Lesnar, he's probably not tied to the UFC. He could go to Bellator for that Frank Mir rematch. What do you think he wants to settle the score with Frank Mir? The first fight, Frank Mir was able to beat him with a knee bar. Second fight, Brock Lesnar was able to beat Frank Mir. And after the fight, there was still bad blood. Remember, he was like, he had a horseshoe in his ass, and I pulled that sumbitch out of him. Some stuff like that Brock Lesnar said after he won the fight. And yeah, so they still had bad blood. They've definitely got a score to settle. That would be the fight I'm most interested in. I would love to see fucking Brock Lesnar versus Frank Mir at Bellator. I would also low-key watch Bobby Lashley versus Brock Lesnar. Two former professional wrestlers. It might not be the most technical fight, but it would just be interesting still. Two former I don't even know if he was I don't know much about Bobby Lashley, but I know I've had other people tell me about him and how Brock Lesnar and him could have a potential MMA fight. Also, though, I would definitely watch Brock Lesnar versus anybody. I think a lot of people fall under that category. Dude's he's a beast. I know a lot of casual fans get hyped for him. I know the microwave. He said on the Big Brother Beatdown. You guys heard the first episode. He definitely would love to see Brock Lesnar come back. So we wouldn't have to worry about USADA, that suspension, all of that crap, and we could get the Frank Mir fight that you couldn't get in the UFC. So I don't know if he would have to go through Matt Mitrione first. I don't even know if he's going to respond to Matt Mitrione. He responded really swiftly to John Jones, but Matt Mitrione might not be the guy Brock Lesnar responds to. I wonder, but I mean, like I said, I'm going to end it there with the Frank Mir, though, because to me, that's huge. Frank Mir versus Brock Lesnar, 3 in Bellator. Talk about getting put on the fucking map. Wow. That would be insane. I just want to see that fight, the third fight. It would be dope. I mean, who do you guys got winning? Let me know in the comments, and let me know if you want to see Brock Lesnar versus, Matt Mitrione even. So, where do you want to see Brock Lesnar come back? Would you rather see him fight the smaller John Jones? Would you rather see him get that fucking rubber match with Frank Mir, the third fight? They're 1-1. Would you rather see Matt Mitrione, this guy that called him out a lot of, that's probably not the vote, but I mean, some people might want to see Matt Mitrione. That's definitely not going to get my vote. My vote would go to Frank Mir, the third fight. And other than that, I mean, it would probably go to John Jones, then Matt Mitrione, then Bobby Lashley. So it is what it is. Let the hitters know what the fuck you think about Matt Mitrione calling out Brock Lesnar and all the other shit I just said in the comments, dude. What's the mating call of a blonde? Next!